Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Vinings Lake. And first of all, thanks to Melissa, Adam, Leah. Thank you for leading us. And it's good to have Leah back on the stage. All right. So grateful she's here with us. Okay, if you're just joining us, there's a few guests in the house. Welcome. We are a progressive space in the heart of the belly of the beast. And we're doing something really strange. We're walking chapter by chapter through the book of Revelation, because we thought we're likely living in some end time scenario. So we thought we would, because if you're like us, everything seems backward right now. Like it all seems like we're living in the upside down. It's weird. And, we were like, I've been wanting to go through Revelation for years. And quite frankly, I just didn't think our collective was ready. And then all those people left, and which confirmed my suspicion that they weren't ready. And then all you new people showed up along the way, and then I just the beginning of the year was like, oh yeah, these people, this is a different group of people. Like they're ready for the book of Revelation. So we decided to jump in, and for those of you that are just joining us, this is teaching 7 in a long series that we're doing through the book of Revelation, and it's called Everything Revealed. And we're trying to take like a historical and literary reading of the book of Revelation. So like one of the questions we ask is, how would the first century audience have read this book? How would they have understood this book? Because we're like a couple thousand years down the road, and what a complicated mess this book has become. You have the Left Behind series, which is like a book series that turned into a movie series. I just found out recently they also have a kids curriculum, which is just heartbreaking. But it's seeing Revelation as some future prediction of the end of the world. And we've said, if you're just joining us, Revelation is not a future prediction about the end of the world. We have to stop reading it that way, okay? We have to understand the context in which it is written and what this author is actually doing. Now, all of that said, in teaching 7, I want to jump into like the heart of the violence in the book of Revelation, okay? So that's where we're going to begin today, and I want you to know this. From chapter 6 to about chapter 16, what you have are 3 stories that are similar, but they're not the same. And it's as if John is like repeating himself in each of these 3 stories, but he's repeating himself and he's adding new perspectives, or he's repeating himself, trying to turn the perspective a little bit to help us see even deeper at what he's trying to do. So you have 3 sections here. Chapter 6 through 8, you have what he calls and talks about as the 7 seals. You've probably heard this before. Growing up in the church as an evangelical kid, I never knew what they were talking about. When they said seal, I thought they meant the animal. I'm like, I don't know. What does it mean, 7 seals? I don't know what that means. And then chapters 8 through 11 is what he calls the 7 trumpets. You've probably heard this. And then chapter 15 through 16, he talks about the 7 bowls. All right. So 7 seals, 7 trumpets, 7 bowls. In between these stories, you have these interludes or these brief breaks where you can tell what John is doing. He's a master artist. Horrible at Greek, but an amazing artist. All right. John is building. He's pulling you in. He's giving you graphic images for a reason. He's pulling you in only to do kind of a good bait and switch, because he shifts it. He makes you believe, oh my God, it's catastrophe. The divine is coming back to slaughter everyone. But then he pulls the carpet out and going, now let me introduce you to the divine. And we got a taste of that last week when John built up that a lion was coming back, only to find in this vision that John has, he doesn't see a lion. He actually sees a slain lamb. And what is that? That is a critique on first century Roman Empire understandings of power. Because we think power is a ferocious lion. And John says, no, that's actually not power at all. Real, true power is self-giving. It is humility. It is decency. It is looking out after the marginalized, the outcast, the alone, those who've been pushed to the edges. Real, true power looks more like a slain lamb than a ferocious lion. And if our current administration could just hear that truth alone, it might help America. We need better understandings of what power is. We need to deconstruct American empire notions of what power is. And this is what John is doing. We talked about Emperor Domitian. We talked about the Roman Empire, and John is writing it in that context. Now, today what I want to do is I want to take on this first image that he gives us of 7 seals. Now, to get at the 7 seals, it's important to remember what happened last week. John is apparently caught up in some vision. He's having some experience. Whether or not it's drug-induced, I don't know, all right? There are some scholars who actually believe John was a person of the land, and it's very possible that he was on some sort of mushroom or having some sort of experience where he's caught up in this vision. I would argue if that's true, then I'm looking at Ezekiel too. You know what I'm talking about? And I'm looking at Daniel, and I'm looking at Isaiah, and I'm looking at all those people. And so I'm like, if that's true about John, it's possibly true about that. Then there's some scholars that are like, no, it's metaphorical. It's not like he's literally having these visions. He is an author and a writer. He knows what he's doing. Remember, John is playing with the like infamous literature of his day, which is apocalyptic literature. It was very famous. It'd be like our sci-fi. All right. So John is just like a good artist, and he's like, I'm taking the sci-fi of the day, apocalyptic literature, and I'm trying to, because he's been exiled, so he's already got the boot of Domitian on his neck. He resisted empire in the direction he's going, so they kicked him out, put him on this island, and so John is just like, I want to write these 7 churches, and I want to explain, I want them to see some things, and he does it in the most creative way possible. But remember, he gets caught up, and instead of seeing this lion, he sees a slain lamb. But here's what's interesting. Remember what we said. In the hands of Domitian, in that statue, the emperor, during the time of this writing, had a scroll in his hand. That scroll, we said last week, was a symbol of power and destiny. You could call that scroll a symbol of control, of someone who controlled history and the will of the people. You could call it, and some scholars have, that what was in that scroll of Domitian was his project or his plan for the coming years for Rome to be like the greatest empire the world had ever seen. It was maybe even a step-by-step plan to say, if we're going to bring back the golden age, like if this is going to be the golden age of the Roman Empire, then there's some things that has to be done. And what we know is that the only person who has the power to open that scroll and see that plan is the emperor himself. But what John does is something so deeply political. First of all, he says, I got caught up and I saw a throne. Well, the word throne is deeply political. That's where Domitian sat. And so John flips it and he says, instead of Domitian coming to open the scroll, because he's the only one that has the power, he flips it and says, actually, we saw a slain lamb who is the only worthy one to open the scroll. And on that scroll was sealed. And the seal of that scroll was like a personal imprint. And it was usually made by like a signet ring that was pressed into clay or wax. Have you ever seen like a real seal before? You know what I'm talking about? We have to break the seal to get into something. That is what we're getting into this morning, all right? So apparently there's a scroll. It has Project Project First Century Roman Empire. This is the direction that we are heading. And so what John says is no one's worthy to open it, but the slain lamb shows up, and the slain lamb, I love this, begins to pop the seals, right? And so apparently there are 7 seals on one scroll. And so one seal at a time is what we're about to read, where John says the slain lambs begins to pop. So it's almost like if you pop one, you know you can look in and see a little bit. You know what I'm talking about? Pop 2, you can see a little bit more. Pop 3, you can see a little bit more. It starts unraveling, right? That's the image that we're given here, okay? Now, that said, let's see it unravel a little bit and see what John does as he's playing here, okay? This is Revelation chapter 6. We'll be today in 6, 7, and 8. So it'll be about 6 hours. Just rest up, okay? Then I saw the lamb, there it is, that slain lamb, break one of the 7 seals. And I heard one of the 4 living creatures call out as with a loud voice of thunder, "Come." I looked, and there was a white horse, and its rider had a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he came out conquering and to conquer. When he broke the second seal, I heard the second living creature call out, "Come!" And out came another horse, bright red. Its rider was permitted to take peace from the earth so that people would slaughter one another, and he was given a great sword. When he broke the third seal, I heard the living creature call out, "Come!" I looked, and there was a black horse, and its rider held a pair of scales in his hands. And I heard what seemed to be a voice in the midst of the four living creatures say, "A quart of wheat for a day's pay, and 3 quarts of barley for a day's pay, but do not damage the olive oil and the wine." I love that too. It's like, take what you want, but leave the wine. When he broke the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth living creature call out, "Come!" I looked, and there was a pale green horse. Its rider name was Death, and Hades followed with him. They were given authority over a fourth of the earth to kill with sword, famine, and pestilence, and by the wild animals of the earth. And when he broke the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slaughtered for the word of God and for the testimony they had been given. They cried out with a loud voice, "Sovereign Lord, holy and true, how long will it be before you judge and avenge your blood on the inhabitants of the earth?" They were each given a white robe and told to rest a little longer, until the number would be complete, both of their fellow servants and of their brothers and sisters who were soon to be killed as they themselves had been killed. Then he broke the sixth seal. Now we're getting into it now. I looked, and there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth, and the full moon became like blood, and the stars, the sky, fell to the earth as the fig tree drops its winter fruit when shaken by a gale. The sky vanished like a scroll, rolling itself up, and every mountain and island was removed from its place. You can just keep reading until the kings and the leaders begin to try to hide themselves in caves, and they cry out eventually that the mountains would fall on them because of the terror. Yeah, welcome to Vinings Lake. Okay, what is John doing here? Now, to get at this, I need to show you an image. This is an image from a Russian painter from 1887, Victor Vasnistov, all right? And this is an image of the 4 horses that John writes about. There it is, yeah. So it was painted in 1887. Now, some of you are probably familiar with the 4 horsemen. You've probably heard this phrase, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. It has come to be a symbol of impending doom, right? Futurists love this because futurists, or like Left Behind people that read, they see this and they're like, these horses work for the divine and they're coming back to destroy all those who have not followed the way of Jesus. Now, Taylor, I don't know if we talked about this, but is there a chance that you got the song that I sent you by chance? You did not. All good. No worries. We didn't review it. There's a song I want you to listen to when you get in your car. It's by Johnny Cash. Have you heard of this man before? All right. Johnny Cash sings a song called "When the Man Comes Around." Have you heard this song? All right. Now, you get in your car later, just cue it up, Johnny Cash, "When the Man Comes Around," and I want you to sit and I want you to listen to it from start to finish, because everything we talk about in this talk, you're going to listen to it going, oh, Johnny Cash was a preacher, all right? Yeah, you listen to that song, you know why he uses that language and the hairs stand up, right? Because it's like this moment when you read it, it says like, oh my God, like this is it. The prophets called it the great day of the Lord. Now, question is that what John is doing here? What is John getting at in this moment? Now, I want to pause here, and I'm going to repeat my refrain that I've been saying to this whole series. Revelation is not a future prediction about 2025, okay? The book of Revelation was not written with the United States of America as the apex of the entire eschatological puzzle of God himself, all right? Now, I understand as Americans, we really struggle with this because we have so believed that we are the grand finale of the human experiment, all right? Like this, it always cracks me up when I see people talk about this is the end of the world and the United States has a key central part in it. I don't know how to burst your bubble. The United States is not in the Bible, okay? You're not the grand finale. You're just not. All right. Now I know you need to be the center of attention of everything, and we're Americans and we think we rule the day. But actually, no one even talks about you in the Bible. They don't really care about you in the Bible. All right. You're not even a part of it. All right. And I also want to tell you, for all of you that sit at the intersection where I do as a white person, you're also not in the Bible. All right. Like I don't know how to tell you that. You're just not in there, all right? And for the record, let's just throw that out. Jesus was not Caucasian. He just wasn't, all right? And he wasn't American, and no one spoke English, all right? So let's just help ourselves with that a little bit, because we want to read ourselves into the Bible going, oh, I knew it. I read it. See, I got it all figured out. And good progressives, you people do this too. No, you don't get off of this one, because you're like, yeah, get those left behind fundamentalist conservatives. No, I'm talking to you, because you've done the same thing. I've watched you. You believe like Trump is the Antichrist. He is the Antichrist, all right? And we're going to get to that statement in just a minute, all right? But I need you to understand something, all right? There is a way to understand what John is doing that is helpful for us living inside an empire. But you also need to realize, first of all, John's not writing in a linear, progressive, like, okay, this is what's going to happen next, and this is what's going to happen next, and this is what's going to happen. No, he's writing in circles. He's trying to bring a point. Remember, apocalypse is an unveiling. It's not a prediction about the end of the world. John is writing specifically to people living under the Roman Empire, all right? And so this is the focus that John is using in this moment. So to take these words and then to slap them on to our scenario is actually really, really dangerous to do. And you're going to see why in the coming parts of the series, because people have already begun to do it and they've been doing it for years. And what that does is it begins to not only need war, but justify wars, because they believe they're trying to fulfill some future prophecy. And that is not remotely close to what John is doing. He was not sitting around on this aisle and going, my God, I had a vision, and I am writing specifically not to these 7 churches. I'm writing to Mableton, like Vinings Lake. Like I'm writing to Southern Baptist in 2025, right? Like that's not remotely close to what is happening here. Now, all that said, the question then what is going on? Now, I want to walk through these horses for a minute, and then we're going to bring it for a second about Art, Kendrick Lamar, Sinead O'Connor, and Rage Against the Machine, and there's a couple things that I want to bring to your attention, okay? Okay, first, let's start with these horses, because you probably know them as the 4 horsemen. Real fast, I want to give you some interpretation here. The white horse. What do we know about the white horse? The white horse had a bow, and it set out to conquer. Okay, immediately, if you were reading it in the first century, you would have known exactly what John is doing here. Now, we don't, because many of us, we haven't really gone like a couple layers deep to understand the world of the first century. How would this first audience have heard this? They would not have thought, this first audience, oh, white horse, that must be Jesus, because apparently Jesus comes back on a white horse who's going to lob off some heads, all right? First of all, let me explain something to you. Jesus is not coming back as a ferocious lion. We've said this. Jesus is not the first lion. He is the slaughtered lamb. Please hear me. Jesus is not coming back to undo everything he taught in the Sermon on the Mount. Love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. He didn't say all that and then turn around and be like, psych. You know what I mean? Like, he's not coming back to undo all his teachings. It always baffles my mind when armchair theologians, and we've got a lot of them in America that think they have an MDiv. I'm like, there's only a few MDivs from Emory, and I want news for you. You're not one of them, all right? No. But armchair theologians are like, okay, we've got it figured out. Jesus is coming back, and he's just going to wreak havoc. And I'm just like, wait, so everything he said means nothing? Like he's just going to contradict everything that he said? No, this white horse is not. The first audience would have been like, what are you talking about? No, the white horse, they knew exactly who this was. And who is the white horse? There was an eastern border of the Roman Empire. And there was a group of people there. They called them the dreaded Parthians. And the Parthians were known as people who carried the bow. And they were a thorn in the side of the Roman Empire's skin. Because the Roman Empire could conquer the world, but there was something about the Parthians that they just couldn't quite get defeated. It's like every time they put down the Parthians would rise up again. And they were a very small, selected group of people, but they used the bow because they were intelligent, because they realized with a massive global superpower like Rome, you don't just kill them trying to go up at them. You do sneak attacks with a bow. You come in the side door and you take the bow, and one at a time, you begin to eliminate the empire. By the way, scholar says the white horse was a trademark for the Parthians. You see, the first audience reading this would be like, oh, my God, John, he's talking about our neighbors, the Parthians, who Rome can't seem to put down. They put them down a little bit and they pop up again. And it was very strategic. Those Parthians knew exactly what they were doing. They knew they would slide in, they would take a shot, and one by one, they were trying to defeat the Roman Empire. Well, what could John be saying with this? Maybe it's something like this. John is using art to expose the vulnerability of the military superpower of the Roman Empire. Maybe he's saying something like this. I know Domitian has invited you in to trust him, but I need you to understand something. Remember, he's writing to 7 churches, some of which have been persecuted because they resist empire, some of which have taken the middle road and believe like the way of Jesus is centrism. They don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to stir anything up. They live in a place of privilege, so just don't worry about what's going on. And then some of them have allied with empire. Remember, those are the audiences, and everywhere in between, those are the audiences that John is writing to. So what could John be saying with this? Maybe John is saying is, I know it's tempting. I know it's tempting because the emperor Domitian, he's like, I got you. I got you. And here's what I know about empire. They will make you think the world is so dangerous. What is that? Fear. Fear. Has anyone ever been a part of a scare tactic? I grew up in evangelical world. The entire religion was a scare tactic. Give money or go to hell. Say these words or go to hell. That's the ultimate scare tactic. You don't get any more ultimate than that. All right? You ever been a part of a scare tactic? If you listen close, their world, our world, if you listen close, not much has changed since the first century. Still good old politicians up there leveraging fear. And you have to be careful because, well, they're dangerous people. They're dangerous. And by and large, it's worked. Fear is very lucrative. This is why Christianity is one of the wealthiest religions of the world. Because they've learned how to make it lucrative. It's why evangelicalism can't seem to die out. Because they made so much money. And it's by and large why places like Vinings Lake aren't like rolling in the money. We fight every week to stay alive here. Why? Because we just decided we're not going to use fear tactics. We just believe if you want to give, you just give out of generosity, not because you might go to hell. Turns out when you say that, people are like, oh, no hell? I'm good. Here's $1. You know what I mean? But then, check out, you people come along and you're amazed. You all come along and you're literally like, dude, I believe this is why what's happening here. And I know I'm biased. I'm like the leader, kind of helping lead, facilitate. But what is happening here is an astonishing miracle to me. I still actually feel like it's all a dream. I do. I think I'm going to die and wake up and be like, Katie, I had this dream. And there's a whole group of people in Mableton. She's like, where's that? And you all just generously give because you're like, no, this is how change happens. This is how the resistance happens. This is what it means to create a safe space where you don't have to leverage fear. And one of the things I want to give you for like an hour on a Sunday is a space where someone's not up here going, let me tell you, if you don't do this, this is going to happen, right? Like I want to give you a safe space where there actually isn't fear, but you watch it. Just watch it. What good politicians do is they will leverage fear to manipulate their own desires. Watch what our administration says about immigrants. Watch the way they talk about them. how dangerous they are. Notice how intentional it is. Notice you'll rarely hear out of a politician, oh, there's an immigrant that works really hard. What you'll hear is they're drug dealers. They're evil people. They're dangerous. They're killing people. What is that? Just take a step back. Just take a step back. Realize, oh, that's leveraging fear. And it's almost as if John is just pulling back the curtain, going, again, that's apocalypse, unveiling. I want to show you this. There's nothing new here. Leaders are doing what leaders have always done, playing on the emotion of fear, wanting you to buy into it. When the reality is, all the immigrants that I know are actually hard workers. And I mean, would run circles around born Americans. They come here with a dream. I would also just remind you that the people that demonize these immigrants are also themselves immigrants. Just to be clear, throw it out because John's clear about it. Remember, this is a series. We don't always talk this way. Elon Musk, the wealthiest man in the world, was not born in America. He was born in South Africa. I'm throwing that out there. I want you to see the hypocrisy of it, right? But be careful. Be careful, right? Like just see that this is what John is doing. He's just kind of leaning open the deal, and he's like, I hope you see this. It's almost as if he's saying, I know it's tempting to trust that they'll take care of you because they make you think everything you need to be terrified. It's a dangerous place out there, and they got you. They have you. And then they promise you all of the arms that they can offer to keep you protected. And John just says, here's what I need you to understand. Remember the Parthians. Your empire is not as strong as they think they are. I do not say that to bring anxiety, moving it from this world to our world. I say that in hopes that you will have less anxiety because you'll learn to trust in something other than the empire itself. And this is what it means to be a follower of Jesus. That's what John is trying to do. Do not place your trust in chariots and horses. Place your trust in the name of the Lord our God. I need you to know something, and please hear me. This is not a prophecy, it's not a prediction, and it's not a threat. Don't come arrest me. I'm just saying this historically speaking. All empires eventually end. They all do. History proves it. Egyptian Empire, done. Roman Empire, we're going to get there soon. Done. The American Empire will eventually end. It will. And I know that's like, what does that mean? What does that mean? We're going to see, hopefully, I'm going to make some parallels. But I can tell you when the Roman Empire ends, but check this out. It's an ending, but it's also a beginning. Yeah. Because some things need to end. Bigotry needs to end. Homophobia needs to end. Racism needs to end. There are evangelical spaces that need to end. There is toxic religion that needs to end. Sexual assault needs to end. You know what I mean? Some things need to end. Whew, that was horse one. All right, it's not looking good today, people. All right, I got to fly through these. All right, I got to because I want to get to the point. Okay, so that was the white horse. So you see what I'm saying? You can read this and you're like, oh my God, white horse? I never knew all that about the Parthians and the white horse. I know, right? Second horse, the red horse. What did you say about the red horse? It came to take peace from the earth. And when peace comes from the earth, they begin to just slaughter each other. What is that about? Well, you know what Rome was infamous for, right? The Pax Romana. What is the Pax Romana? It's Latin for Roman peace. Rome was notorious for the people that brought peace to the world. They had 200 years of what they called the golden years. What is John saying? John is uncovering the illusion of peace by way of sword. He's saying, I know they promised you golden years. I know they promised you the Pax Romana. I know they promised you peace. That's what empires do. They promise you peace. But what I need you to understand is that peace by way of sword cannot and will not ever happen. It just won't. But the myth of redemptive violence is still very much so prevalent in our world today. But as our friend Derek Webb says so well, peace by way of sword is like purity by way of fornication. It's like, imagine a country or a nation killing people to show you killing is wrong. That makes no absolute sense. That is the definition of hypocrisy. Man, there's more in me this morning than I thought was going to be there. What is he doing? John is uncovering the illusion of peace. This isn't real peace. This is a false peace. This is a pseudo peace. Because I got news for you. War never brings peace. War simply guarantees the perpetuation of more violence down the road. Oh, don't get me wrong. You may have 100 years of ceasefire, but you've planted seeds for generations to come that will further perpetuate the acts of violence. It's as if John is saying, check it out, empire can't provide the security it promises. Black horse. What does the black horse have? A pair of scales in his hands. What is this? You know what this is. This is an image of economic wonder. The Roman Empire was an economic wonder. And what John is doing is he's exposing the inequality of Rome's economics. It's as if he's letting those churches know, don't place your trust in the stock market, because I'm telling you, it's not as stable as you think it is. America, the richest nation in the world, it is not as stable as you might think it is. You know how I know this? Get one catastrophe and it can wreck the economic system. Just when you think you're wealthy and you're at the top of the game, you have one moment that shifts and all of a sudden you get hit in the side and you realize, oh, we're not near as strong as we thought we were. Insert global pandemic. One global pandemic, finances go insane. All of a sudden you start realizing, wow, this nation isn't as stable as perhaps we thought it was. And in the first century, Rome's economic system was harming the poor, but bringing wealthy to the rich. Anybody know anything about that? How about we quote Bernie Sanders? In my view, you judge a country not by the number of millionaires or billionaires it produces, but by how it treats the most vulnerable people among them. Why is it that I see Bernie just sitting in a chair saying that with his hands like this? In my view, you know what I mean? Like just, I don't have a Bernie impersonation, but God, I wish I did. Green horse. Green horse is like the influx of death, famine, and pestilence. It's just what we were saying. COVID-19, right? Like this is the horse. Rome provided the ultimate protection with war. It provided economic wonder. It promised peace. And it also promised health. And John is uncovering the limits of Caesar's powers and the fragility of Rome's protection. It's as if he's showing you it's not as strong as you think it actually is. There are limits to what the empire can do. And John is saying, you want how I know this? It can protect you from some things, but let me tell you what it cannot protect you from: death. Let me tell you what it cannot protect you from: pandemics. Let me tell you what it cannot protect you from. And John just goes through the list. And it's as if he's trying to show you there are limits to the power of Domitian and his empire. There are just some things it cannot do. And then in verse 9 through 17, you start getting into seal 5 and seal 6. And just as we read, you feel it starting to escalate. It gets worse and worse and worse. And it's building and building and building until it reaches kind of a climax in the mighty run. And they beg the mountains to fall on them. What is this? What's interesting, he stops at seal 6. So remember, he's got the scroll. He pops open 6 seals. Well, there's one left, seal 7. Between 6 and 7, he pauses, and he gives an interlude. So he builds it up. He's making a good movie here. He builds it up, builds it up, builds it up, and then right before he pops off the 7, he stops. So we can start to see. You see what John is doing. Oh, there's a horse. There's another horse. There's another horse. There's another horse. Pop, pop, pop. You get right down to 6, and it is like the climax, like here it comes. And what he wants you to believe, what he wants these first writers to believe is he's exposing the impotence of the Roman Empire, and he's inviting them to trust in something larger than this empire. But as he's exposing it, he does want you to feel the terror. He does. It's very real. What I just read is not some future incident that will happen in the future. This is like real life for these people living in the Roman Empire. They knew this. They knew about being pushed to the edges economically. They knew about the peace that Rome promised. But what was happening is many began to just kind of buy into it. And it was a very subtle buy-in. I need to remind you of that. It wasn't like, it wasn't so explicit. Like, it wasn't like people were literally just like, well, okay, I'll bow down and worship Domitian. Remember, the imperial cult is very subtle. It was just like, hey, if you're going to participate in the economy, then you're just going to need to acknowledge Caesar as Lord. And most of those people, even some of the Jesus people, were like, hey, that's not a big deal. I know he's not God, so yeah, of course. I'll light an incense to Domitian. Yeah. No big deal. I got to provide for my people, so that's what I'll do. And they were benefiting greatly from the Roman Empire. Let's be honest. There were some benefits from living within the empire. And this is how it was. It wasn't as explicit. It was just as subtle. And so there are a group of people that are like, it's not a big deal. Just give respect. Give a little salute. That's it. Just a little salute. It's not a big deal. Everybody get over it. If I've heard that once, I've heard it 1,000 times. And if you go back and look at history, it's in every empire that crumbles. There's always a group of people going, calm down, you're overreacting. I often wonder, who were the pastors that were like right before Hitler like hit his ultimate regime? They're like, everybody just calm down. And then who are the prophets going, calm down, do you not see this? And this is what Johnny's a prophet. He's pulling it back. He's like, I just want you to see this. Well, he stops on the 6th seal for a reason. What is 6? In ancient Hebrew, 6 is the number of incompletion. What is 7? You know in the Hebrew world, it's the number of completion. By the way, we're going to get to it in a couple weeks. This is why when John, you'll hear him talk about a mark, we're going to get to what scholars believe that mark was. But the number of that mark was 6, 6, 6. Now, remember, what is John doing? He gives us 3 different stories with 7 seals, 7 trumpets, and 7 bowls. What does that mark? 7, 7, 7. Completion, empire, 6, 6, 6. Incompletion. Many stop at the 6, but they must keep going to the 7. Because full completion looks like this. Do not buy into this lie that this is the way of peace. It will only lead to an incomplete destruction. Okay? So John knows exactly what he's doing when he pauses at popping the seal, and it's the 6th one. He wants you to lean in and see this, all right? And what is he getting at here? These images are not calamities brought on by a vindictive God. I need to stress that. These images are not calamities brought on by a vindictive God. They are about the crumbling of the Roman Empire from the inside out. John is exposing the impotence of the empire. And what he's saying is the empire is not the shining light it claims to be. I know they've promised you the golden age, but I need you to know something about the golden age. The golden age is actually going to be a golden age, but make no mistake, the golden age is only golden because the sun has indeed set on the empire. And it's as if he wants you to see what is actually underneath all the promises of protection and money and health and power. And he's exposing it, and he wants you to get a good take at it. And what he's really saying is, you are seeing it for exactly what it is. And I believe that's true if you fast forward to our time, but what I actually believe is happening right now. I believe we are seeing America for who it really is. And I'm going to be the first to tell you, it's hard to look at. It's hard to look at for two reasons. Because sometimes I look at it and I go, God, that's ugly. And I know there's part of it in me too. And I think that's what's most striking about this moment in American history. And part of it is you have to protect yourself. We've talked about this. So sometimes you want to look away. But I do really think it's important if you can keep your health and your anxiety. If you're rolling in a panic attack after panic attack, cut it. Cut all circuits. We need you well. The world needs you. All right? So manage your own energy levels. And I'm doing the same. Trust me. The last 2 weeks have been tough on an anxiety level, and I'm learning what you take in. There's a direct correlation between how much news I take in and how much anxiety I feel. So I'm learning to hold the balance. But I want to say this. If you can, keep looking. Because I know it's hard to see, but it's important that you see. Because what you're seeing right now is an external of what's been true about America internally. It's just finally surfacing. And I know that's hard for some of us to see, and we don't want to believe that. It's like believing something about our own kid. But I want you to know this is the only reason I speak on these subjects. I love America. It's all I know. I was born in Florida, Lake City. I lived in Webb, Alabama. You don't get any. I played Pee Wee football in Alabama. You tell me something more American than Pee Wee football in Alabama, all right? I mean, I love this country. I moved to East Tennessee. Lived in Blakely, Georgia for a while. I am a Southerner. Like, this is who I am. No one loves this country more than this guy, like more than you, more than we all. We're like, we love this. But this is why we critique it. You only critique that which you love. If I didn't care, I wouldn't say anything about it. If you didn't care about the direction your child was going, you wouldn't say anything to that child. But you do care. Yes, this is a part of why we say what we say and do what we do. And I want you to know what you're seeing is who America really is, not who America pretends that it is. I would argue maybe we've been pretending all along. And the one thing that's happening with this administration is, to their credit, they're actually just making explicit what has been sitting in the deep, dark shadows of the empire for a long time. And healing happens when it moves out from the inside and it moves into the exterior, and we can actually begin to see it. I know that's true for me. If I want to be healed from things, I've got to move it from that internal realm, and it's got to come out into the external. And so I actually believe like we're on the precipice of some major healing here in this country. Yeah, if it feels like we're like, well, which way is it going to go, George? Like, well, which direction we headed here? I know. Because I actually think we get to decide. But before we make our decision, it's important we see what we need to see. I believe our current president is, as I've heard someone say, Katie sent me this week, is the unfiltered, unedited, and unphotoshopped version of America since its conception. To his credit, he's just being honest as he understands it. But what you're seeing is the thing you don't want to see. And that's the thing about Shadow Work 101. Shadow Work 101 is, oh my God, I hate that in that person. And all of a sudden you're like, oh God, that's also in me. Yeah. Yeah. I just remind you, this country's origin started. It's good to be reminded. Don't erase history here. This country origin started because a group of people, immigrants, came here with slaves on board and decided to slaughter a bunch of people that live here because, as Pete Seeger says, the great prophet, there was a sign in America that said no trespassing, but there was nothing that said anything about it on the back of the sign. Yeah. So it's like you get here to America, no trespassing private property. But if you walk behind the sign, well, check it out. There's nothing behind it. Yeah. That is our story. That is our story. And to negate that doesn't create any sense of healing. It was Richard Rohr who says you cannot heal what you do not acknowledge. We must acknowledge why AA begins going, hey, my name is so-and-so and I'm an alcoholic. Thank God you acknowledged it. Hey, we're America and we're a bunch of racists. You know what I mean? And hear me when I say this, you better believe it's in me. Yeah. You're not born in Florida and Alabama and not have some racism in the body. Oh, if you don't think I haven't done, I work continually. This isn't like, oh, just flip the switch. I'm woke. Get out of here. No, this is deep work. Hey, I live on Veterans Memorial. This is deep work, people. Hear me when I tell you, when I drive through places to get to Atlanta and I feel the impulse, you better believe I do. Like, how do I feel about this? Do I judge these people? Oh, yeah, this is real stuff. Endless hours of therapy working through how I was conditioned to believe about certain people. Yeah. We're all in this work together. But it's really not helping things when the leader of the thing doesn't seem to care about any shadow work at all. And in fact, the very words are, I've never asked forgiveness from God because I've never felt like I needed to ask for forgiveness. My God, help America. Yeah, I know. But I will also pause here and say it is real easy to hang a man on a cross when the reality is that stuff's in all of us too. And that is what the prophets called a scapegoat. So I want to just hang here. Yes, we will critique the powers that be. But I also want you to know I will hold simultaneously to this truth that the work that needs to be done is keep speaking truth to power, but I will simultaneously keep doing my deep inner work. Because I can point out, hear me, it is a lot easier to point out the racism in our current administration than to acknowledge it in my own life. And it's convenient to do that because if I can point it out on others, it can keep me from paying attention to myself. And I'm not saying you have to choose either or. No, my friends, we do the work together, all of it. Yes. Oh, man. We're about to go to lunch together, all right? Table gathering. Okay. So what's happening here? Let's do this because there's a whole end. It's seal 6, and then you jump to seal 7. Okay, but there's an interlude between. And again, what is John doing? He's pulling the rug out. All right. So follow me here. I just want to read this to you. Here's what happens next. There's a brief period where John, you think the end's coming. You're like, this is it. But here's what happens. This is Revelation chapter 7, verse 3. Do not damage the earth or the sea or the trees until we have marked the servants of our God with a seal on their foreheads. And I heard the number of those who were seated, 144,000. How many of you have heard that before? 144,000 will be the only people. Yeah. Okay. How about we give a quick quote for this? All right. This is from Eugene Boring. Which last name Boring? That's pretty epic. The number 144,000 is intended as symbolic theology, not literal mathematics. God, can we just stop there? People, let's just chill on the 144,000. All right. And come on, you do have to you're in on the joke, right? 144,000, but the people that say that are part of the, okay. It is meant to convey the impression of a vast throng beyond all reckoning. John resists the temptation to think smugly of only the, quote, faithful few, unquote. What is John doing here? He is showing you something, all right? In the midst of people that keep buying into this way, John is exposing that, going, don't go that direction, don't go that direction. He stops, and just when you think catastrophe is coming, he's like, no. Catastrophe's not coming, but I'll tell you what is. There's actually a whole group of people that haven't bought into the way of empire. Yeah. And so if you are a part of that church that is resisting and it feels like you are alone, I want you to know something. You're not alone. There are more of you than you realize. What is this? Empowerment. This is empowerment. What this empire wants you to feel is disempowered. Like you can't change anything. This is called despair. The empire wants you to live in despair. The empire wants you to live with hopelessness. But I want you to know this, and this is what John is saying. You have more power than you realize. I have more power than I realize. And check this out. We have more power than we realize. This is why we gather. This is why we gather, because we could do it individually, go for it, or we could do it collectively. And this is what John is getting at. He's saying, not everyone has gone the way of destruction, because there is a path that is broad and it leads to destruction, but then there is also a narrow path and it leads to life. And there are people, if you look around, you will see them. They are leading to life. Yes. Yes. What is it? Go on, Revelation 7:9. Just when you think, oh, there are a few, 144,000. This is fantastic. Nope, gets a lot bigger. A lot more people than you imagine. Check this out. This is Revelation 7:9. After this I looked, and there wasn't just 144,000. There was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, from all tribes, including Canada, and peoples and languages, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, robed in white with palm branches in their hand. They cried out in a loud voice, saying, salvation belongs to our God, who is seated on the throne, and to the Lamb. Yes. Yes, John is just saying there are people spread out all over the world. And listen to them. They're waving the palm branches. They're wanting you to see you're not alone. The way of love is being taken up by more people than you and I could ever imagine. And instead of it ending in destruction for the empire, what you see is a shift and the rug pulled out going, no, 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 no. Because what I just showed you, that's not all of the empire. Please hear me. That is like the death rattle of the empire, just kicking and screaming for its bigotry. But what you see in the end is like a universal salvation. Yes. This is a beautiful, beautiful image. God, Kevin, we're going to lunch, me and you, all right? Kevin's on it today, and I'm feeling the energy, all right? Yes. This is it. No. I'll just pause here. We got like 3 minutes left, and then we're out of here. I hope, please join us. We're going to drive out here, take a right on East-West. John is on the right. I'm going to be there. Tropicalia's waiting on me. All right, so here we go. All right, here we go. Now, what is all of this? I need to, let's get to Rage Against the Machine and Sinead O'Connor. Okay, here it is. All right. What is all of this? What is John doing here? You're going to see him do it 2 more times. Okay, so wait for it when you think, oh my God, it's getting really violent. Carpet's pulled. Something will surprise you. Slain lamb. Didn't see that coming. Universal salvation, 144,000. Didn't see that coming. Yep, I know. You wait till you get to the trumpets, and then wait till we get to the very end, the end of the end of the end of the empire. All right, wait till we get there. Going to be a real shocker because the city is gone, but then, whoop, didn't see that coming. A new Jerusalem. Okay, I just gave you too much, but okay, here we go. All right, all right. What is John doing here? John is an artist. All right, I cannot stress this enough. Brian Duncan, in his great book Upside Down Apocalypse, says it like this: good art twists the world just enough to help us see what we missed. John uses conventional imagery and apocalyptic literature that his audience would have placed within their world to help them see the world in new ways. He believes the ability of art to illuminate the world. John has something to say, and he wants to tell us that everything is not as we think it is. That's it. Everything is not as we think it is. And I'm going to use art to show you in a very creative way what I'm talking about. Let's talk about art for a minute. There is a direct correlation between the rise of the artist and the rise of corrupt empire. And I believe you're seeing that right now, even in our world. You see it through all history. I mean, we could go to 1,000 people and point and talk about art and artist. As one writer said, Walter Brueggemann, every authoritarian regime or empire is frightened by the artist. All right? Every emperor was frightened by the artist. Every president is frightened by the artist. Every authoritarian leader is frightened by the artist. They are, hang with me here, quote, the Parthians, unquote, of the day. They're the ones they can't quite stomp out. They're like, ugh, they get on my nerves. There's like a thorn in the flesh. Yeah, like a thorn in the flesh. And this is what I believe the invitation is for us. I'm inviting Vinings Lake. I'm inviting you. Would you be a thorn in the flesh of this administration? Yeah. I know it's not for everybody. And for those of you that didn't clap, no judgment. All right, no judgment. Not everybody has the energy to do this. I get it. Hey, what if you were a bit of a thorn in the family text feed? I know that may sound backwards, like we're supposed to bring peace. Yeah, how are we going to get there if we don't like actually pull the curtain back? Because I don't want that fake peace. You know what the fake peace is, right? Like, let's go to the family gathering. All is good, but don't talk about this. Can you give me a relationship where I can walk in and be safe? I'm tired of the fake peace. It's all a facade. It's pretend. We walk in like, how's the family? When you know you despise the path that I'm speaking, and I believe that is absolute bigotry and destroying America. Yeah, what if we all got authentic and real? I know. That's what the Parthians were. I believe that's what the artists are. And the artists have been there. I'll just name a few for you. They've been there along the way. All right? First of all, let's just start with the prophets for a minute. You ever heard of this phrase? Symbolic action. That is what John is doing here. He's using symbolic action, art. He's using art. Isaiah, the prophet in your Bible, you know what he did as a symbolic action? He stripped his clothes off and he walked around barefoot and naked for 3 years. It's in the Bible. Read about it. What was he doing? Did he want to get arrested? No, they didn't do that back then, all right? He walked around trying to make a point. What was that? He was a prophet. He was an artist. He was using symbolic action, guerrilla theater of sorts, trying to make a point. Yes. Talk about Ezekiel. Ezekiel laid on his left side for 390 days to make a point. That's in the Bible. Read about it. Book of Ezekiel. He's like, I'm going to not move. I'm going to lay on my left side for 390 days. And then he got up and turned and laid on his right side for 90 days. What is he doing? He's making a point. It's symbolic action. He's an artist. He's using creativity. Let's talk about Jeremiah. Go read Jeremiah. Jeremiah might be the most creative one. He did all kinds of things if you want to read about it. By the way, I'm going to do a series soon on just the work of art at some level, because I want you to see how inspiring it is how these prophets got really creative with their justice. Oh my God, this series. Write it down. That's a series. Something about creativity, justice, all those words, write them down because we'll come back to it and we got to get, because that just hit me. That's a whole series. Wouldn't that be amazing? Let's walk together through how creative these justice seekers, how they moved about in the text. But Jeremiah, he had these jars. And there's a place in the Bible you can read where he just smashes the jars, like right in front of the leadership. Just, God, the first time I read that, I remember going, where are the jars? All right. Yeah. Okay. All that's symbolic action. Now, fast forward a little bit, okay? Let's just fast forward. Let's when I say fast forward, I mean let's go to our world for a second. Just the other day, it's perfect to end on. Just the other day, I watched the Super Bowl with you people. And I was like, oh, first of all, the game was boring. It's terrible. Katie was very kind because we don't do parties anymore. By the way, you're getting old. When I was like, Katie, you want to do a Super Bowl party? She's like, why would we do a Super Bowl? That's a good point. So it's like Katie made cookies. She makes these spectacular cookies with salt on them. And oh my God, it's like a whole mind-blowing experience. And she made these cookies and I was just like, just keep making them. And I just like, and so we're watching this. And then she and I both, I have been a fan of Kendrick Lamar's for a while. And when I say that, I mean that I've told you this before, but I kind of grew up, I spent time in Blakely, Georgia. So I was introduced to rap music back then. And so I do nerd out a little bit on like the evolution of it. So like from, how did we go from Eazy-E to Kendrick? Like, I'm curious about that evolution. Like, how did it move? And then you get to Future and like mumble rap and how you can see it evolve, like you see it evolve. And I'm like, how did we move? And then I also lean into the artists because I want to know what are they saying? I mean, these people have their pulse on it, by the way. There's a reason they've sold millions and millions of albums. It's not because they're like, they're the greatest musicians ever. No, they're saying something that resonates with people. And so you have to listen to it to hear it, right? And so I already knew, and part of the reason I love Kendrick, I've told you this before, because on his Mr. Morale album, he has Eckhart Tolle on the album multiple times. His wife says to him one time, he wrote a song about having daddy problems, daddy issues, and his wife says to him on the album, you need to call Eckhart. And he's like, I don't need to call Eckhart. She's like, call Eckhart. They get in this little argument on the album. I'm like, first of all, whose therapist is Eckhart? You know what I mean? Like, that's what I want that one. Like, if you know anything about Eckhart Tolle, he's like the magician. Like, could you imagine? I'm a good therapist, but God, if I had Eckhart in my cell phone, that wouldn't end well for him. All right, so I've always like appreciated it. And then Eckhart's voice is on the album, so I was like, Katie, I was like, listen, in the world we live in right now, it's going to be really important to lean into this halftime show. Because I know enough about Kendrick to know he's not coming out here, singing the national anthem. You know what I'm talking about? Like, he's coming, and he's very creative, and he's an artist. So we need to listen. And so we start playing it, and first of all, Uncle Sam popped up. And I was like, already, I just got happy. You know what I mean? I was like, there he is, right? I'm like, this is amazing. All right. And then it just starts rolling, right? No. My favorite was when it was all said and done. Now, immediately when it finished, because I was like, Katie, turn it up. Put those captions on. You got to read this stuff, right? And immediately when it was over, I just looked over at Katie, and I was like, oh, and my jaw was like, and she was like, I know. And I'm like, and here, part of the reason I was doing this because I didn't understand half of it. But you know how you can feel it? Like you knew? And I knew Kendrick enough to know, oh, this is layers deep. But I didn't understand it. So I knew I was going to have fun all week. I was like, oh my God, I get to unpack this. And I nerd out on stuff. This is what I do with scripture. I'm like, oh, I'm going to get in. Because it is helpful to know certain things in order to understand what he is saying. You're going to draw a parallel here between, here's where we're going, what John is doing and what Kendrick did. Follow me. They're not that different. By the way, this is why my favorite was after the performance I got up on Monday, and all the older white folks in the world were like, that was the worst halftime show ever. Hear me. I'm not mocking, but just hear me. Do you know how many people have said that about the book of Revelation? That's the dumbest book ever. I don't understand it, ye. Hello? I know. By the way, you just told on yourself. Maybe part of the reason you don't get it is because it was written about you. Okay? No, follow me. And I know we're playing with this, but just hang on, okay? I'm trying to draw some parallels here. So I start going. So it's helpful to know. Like, and I would literally just say, and I'm not mocking their ignorance, because I would want to say that I know how stages of consciousness works. I would want to say to them, hey, let me help you a little bit. First of all, it might be helpful just on a basic, superficial, shallow level. Let me introduce you to Drake. Do you know what I'm saying? Because if you knew something, I mean, this is 101, but if you knew something about Drake, then you'll at least pick up on a good chunk of the references, right? You know exactly what he's doing, and this is why he has the greatest tennis player of all time out there, too. He knows, like, these are intentional. You know what I mean? Like, he knows what he's doing, right? Now, I say all that to say, but it wasn't even the content, because people could play all day long, and I get it. I'll probably get emails like, you nice white man, you don't know anything about what you're saying. I'll be the first to confess that. From a higher level, I need you to understand something. From a higher level, let me tell you why it sparked so much energy in me. Because you know what John's doing? You know how I know it's very similar to what Kendrick did? Here's how. Do you remember what Ethelbert Stauffer said about the book of Revelation? It's written with the gladiator games as the backdrop. Maybe I should just word it like this, all right? This is what Ethelbert actually says. How did the gladiator game start in Domitian in the first century? We've already talked about this. You remember? Hey, I need the providences and the leaders of the providence to come up here. You're doing this good. You're doing this bad. Adjust, turn from this. Otherwise, I'm going to come and snuff you out. That's what Domitian did. That's how he started his games. Then they went, to the Roman doxology. All hail Caesar and his empire. Yep. That's how they started their games. And then, after people dressed in white sang their praises to Domitian, Caesar is Lord. He is both Lord and God. He's come to bring peace to the world. Savior. No other name by which men can be saved than that of the Roman Empire. After they finished the Roman doxology, you know how the games began? Someone would get up and go, let the games begin. And how did the games begin? horse races. What did we just read? 4 horses. Ethelbert Stauffer said it like this: the noise of the chariots filled the air like the rattling of many teams of horses rushing into battle. Bowmen on horseback, swordsmen, and torchbearers raced past. The horses raced in 4 teams and 4 colors. The spectators, too, were divided among the 4 parties, and they followed the race with cries of joy and sorrow. And then, of course, after the games were over, executioners would ride out on their horses wearing the mask of the god Hades, and they would remove the dead bodies. John. He's giving us an apocalyptic word from a gladiator game. What did Kendrick do? Right in the middle of the American Empire's gladiator game, he gave an apocalyptic word. But not everybody could pick up on it. You better believe that was intentional. Yeah. And he's not the first. We're closing. You all been good. He's not the first. I just want to give you these. 1970, Johnny Cash. He was invited to Nixon's White House during Vietnam War, and Nixon said, I want you to come because I have the Southern agenda. I've got to win the Southerners. So if I have Johnny Cash, then we'll get the Southerners. Johnny, come and I want you to sing 2 specific songs. Johnny showed up. He did not sing those 2 songs. Instead, Johnny sang a song called What is Truth, which was an anti-Vietnam War song. What was that? That was an artist doing what artists do. Fast forward, Rage Against the Machine, 1996. Rage Against the Machine, what do? They're invited to SNL. They get up on Saturday Night Live, and they decide, we have a message to give. Very subtle, very simple, but we have a message to give. We want to turn the flag upside down on our guitar amp. People of SNL are like, absolutely not. You can't do that. So they're like, okay, cool, no worries. Everybody calm down. And you know anything about Rage Against the Machine? You know. If you don't know their music, just, well, have fun today, all right? They're rebellious rock. Like, we won't do what you tell us. Like, that's their thing. Like, they're like, no. 5 seconds before they go live, because SNL's live, the guitarist is like, puts the flag up. One of the people that watch the show are like, he just put that flag up. We told him no. They get in a tug of war, and they're literally counting down. We are live in 5, 4, and they're pulling the flag back and forth. And finally, he lets it go, and the executive took it, and they didn't have it. And then right as soon as Rage Against the Machine walked off the stage, the people at SNL and Lauren Michaels said, you don't get a second shot. You're out of here. 1992, Sinead O'Connor. You remember this one? She gave a run-through in her practice at SNL, and she held up a piece of paper, and it was of a woman. And they were like, we don't even understand. It's some kind of art. I love that. She was so brilliant in that moment. But then the show got live, and she starts singing her song again, and she doesn't just hold up a person that is a woman. She holds up the picture of the Pope. You remember this? And then she rips the picture. Well, why would she do that? It's like sacrilegious. Well, you do that because you're an artist and you're trying to say something. And what is it she's trying to say? She's trying to say, I was sexually abused by the Catholic Church. It is corrupt. Yeah. By the way, my favorite thing about that whole incident is it was said Lauren Michaels, who runs SNL, said to the people in the headsets, do not hit the applause sign. Because they have the applause sign. So when she finished, go back and watch it. Complete silence. Yes. Yes. I say all that to you to say, we're being invited to get creative. That's what John's doing. You are now the artist. How are you going to get creative? What can you do to illuminate the reality of what the world is, but at the same time, showing them we can take a new path. It is going to be narrow, it's going to be difficult, But I promise you there is a path. It leads to life. It is the way of love, and it runs contrary to the way of empire. Vinings Lake, oh my God, thank you. Please, this week, sit. Do you know what happens next in this? Pause. That's it. It says everything goes silent. That's what happens in chapter 8 of Revelation. Sinead O'Connor, silent. No applause. Silent. And it's as if John just says, sit in the silence for a minute, and you ask yourself, how can you get creative this week with your resistance? What would that look like for you? Okay, Vinings Lake, I will see you at table gathering. Peace be with you.